Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Monday briefing from the National Weather Service in Wakefield. And I wanted to get started off by showing you the current radar from across basically the eastern half of the U.S. So we do have a threat, which I'll go over in the next few slides, for some severe weather this afternoon and evening, mainly across the northern portions of our area. However, there's not a lot of confidence in this. It's kind of basically whatever happens with the stuff that's moving over Ohio currently, and if it actually makes it to the area. And that's going to be the story of the next few days with the severe threat, is if any type of these systems make it to our area and in what capacity they make it to our area in. Now we'll go ahead and get started with our briefing. Alrighty, so the highlights for this coming week is that we do have isolated to scattered scattered storms possible through the afternoon and evening each day and into the night in some cases. However, there once again remains a lot of uncertainty. The one we're really going to talk about is going to be the slight risk for Tuesday, as there's a little bit more confidence in the coverage for storms, especially in the western portion of the area. However, there's still a lot of uncertainty, but there is going to be a slight risk for the far western portions of the area and a marginal risk elsewhere. It is going to remain very warm and humid with highs in the low to mid 90s and heat indices in the upper 90s to around 105. As of right now, we don't have any heat products out and none are expected, but that may change with additional forecast cycles. As far as marine weather, just expecting sub-small craft advisory conditions through midweek. So pretty benign boating conditions. All right. So looking at the weather pattern, we're once again expecting warm through Friday at least, with typical, maybe slightly above normal temperatures, but very typical of August. The heat indices pretty oppressive sometimes, but once again, mostly pretty normal for August. There is a front that will linger toward the northern parts of our area Tuesday through Friday, or actually might make its way finally through the area on Friday. And this could be the focal point of any of those storms that I was mentioning. So whatever develops along this front and moves down closer to our area is what we will probably see over the next few days. All right, so we'll start off with today's severe threat. As previously mentioned, there is a risk for isolated to potentially scattered, but more isolated convection this afternoon to this evening. And what does develop, or if it does make it here, it could be strong, especially with the pretty good daytime heating. Most likely between 5 to 11 p.m. They're going to be moving pretty quickly. The main threat is going to be wind gust. But once again, as previously mentioned, the confidence is low in this panning out. All right. So for Tuesday, we have the Storm Prediction Center has far portions of the western area highlighted in a slight risk, and then the remainder of our area highlighted in a marginal risk. So level 1 out of 2, and then level 1 out of 5, and then level 2 out of 5 for the far western portions of our area. If storms do form, they're going to likely be, what we've been seeing is they're going to be pretty late. So that's where the lower confidence comes in, is just because you're starting to lose that daytime heating. But in this pattern, it is still possible to get those severe storms later. So main threat, once again, is going to be wind gusts of 60 miles per hour or greater. And there will be some localized flooding possible with these storms, but we'll get into that in a minute. And lastly, looking at Wednesday's severe storm potential, another low confidence day, as mentioned. So there might be some isolated stronger to severe storms, mainly across the southwestern portion of the area and into northeast North Carolina. And as with Tuesday, it really depends on the timing of the storm. So the timing is a little bit questionable, just because there is a chance that this stuff could go later. So we did put the most likely timing as a pretty broad time frame from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. And as with the last few days, the main threat is going to be the wind gusts of 40 to 60 miles per hour and potential for localized flooding. All right, speaking of localized flooding, so today the areas that are highlighted for localized flooding are going to be the same areas that are going to be in the risk for severe. So that's going to be the far northern portions of our areas and the Maryland Eastern Shore counties. Then heading into Tuesday and Wednesday, most of the area, I guess for Tuesday, all of the areas highlighted in a marginal risk of excessive rainfall. And this is likely going to be for the more urban and flood-prone areas, but can't rule it out in other areas as well. But the most likely areas are going to be the more urban areas. All right, looking at any type of QPF totals, so any type of rainfall, it's going to be pretty sparse today. So not really expecting too much rain except for in that northern portions and Eastern Shore counties. And then going into tomorrow, it does become a little bit more robust with some rainfall expected across most of the area, with the heaviest rainfall expected across the northern portions of the area. And this is more of a broad brush look. So if we do get any of those stronger showers and thunderstorms, we could see localized heavy rainfall within any of those storms. So, but that's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly where any heavier rainfall is going to fall. And that is the same with the timing or the rainfall expected for Wednesday. So still expecting those isolated to widely scattered storms. And once again, any type of storm that is able to develop that is stronger may produce localized heavy rainfall with any of the storms. All right, and just looking at our overall precipitation forecast through next week, really not expecting much of a soaker per se. You can see that the areas that already currently have those that convective system that I was showing earlier up in the West Virginia and Ohio area, that they are expecting more, but just a matter of what makes it down to our area, since they already have the front that we talked about earlier sitting there and helping them out. So not really expecting too much in the way of overall precipitation, unless you do find yourself in a scattered or even isolated storm. So for the heat, we do have an excessive heat threat of elevated for most of the week for at least some portion of the area. So we'll get a little bit more into timing. It looks pretty broad today, but there's no real significant threat that is seen. So we'll go through Wednesday so you can see the different max temperatures and heat index values. So as previously mentioned on the highlight slide, temperatures are going to be in the lower to mid 90s, with some areas, especially on Wednesday, you can see in the Eastern Shore area that might be in the upper 80s. But as far as max heat indices go, with lighter winds, it will feel pretty stagnant and probably pretty uncomfortable, with heat indices in the upper 90s to a little bit over 100. And looking at tomorrow, there might be some isolated spots that see 105. And this is just a quick look at some of the areas across the region and what their max heat indices are going to be each day. So once again, the scattered, you can see, for Edenton, Elizabeth City, they might touch the 105, which is our heat advisory criteria, but we'll see. It's going to be right on the cusp, but for most areas, it should stay under heat advisory criteria. And then just another quick look at our daily regional forecast. With the overnight lows, there will be not much of a reprieve because we're expecting for at least some areas, especially closer to the coast, because they're being a little bit more moderated by the ocean. However, at least through Friday, temperatures will likely be in the 70s to near 80. So not much of a reprieve overnight, still pretty humid. And then looking at the probability of precipitation, once again, the timing kind of lines up with, especially on Tuesday, that it's going to be later in the evening. So moving on. As far as rip current risks go, basically matches what the marine forecast is benign. So we have low rip current risk for all beaches through at least Tuesday. Alrighty, and looking ahead to late next week and beyond, we are favored for slightly above normal temperatures and near to slightly above normal precipitation. Alrighty, and lastly, looking at the tropics. So right now the tropics seem to be getting a little bit more excited. However, none of the systems that are on this pose a threat to the local area. I can go over that a little bit, just kind of show you their trajectories. So area, I'll go and kind of show you what we're talking about. So this is the areas that we just highlighted. So first, the one that's actually, right off the coast, we can go and look at where this is going to go. So this basically tracks out all the way, all of the guidance says it tracks out away from our area. And then moving on to the smaller one. So we'll look at this one. So this is the one that doesn't have quite as high of a chance of development. So that goes basically straight into the northern part of South America. And then the last one with the greatest, which is about a 60% chance of formation. This one, most of the guidance has basically turning out back to sea. So the main thing is, especially depending on intensity, we could see some higher rip current risk with longer period swell, but that's to be determined. So we'll definitely keep an eye on these. But as of right now, there is no risk for our area. All right, so we'll go over one last thing, which is just going to be the marine hazards, just to kind of show you, really not expecting much in the way. So looking at any type of marine threat potential, there's very limited marine threat potential through at least Friday. Looking at these wind gusts, these are the maximum wind gusts we're expected to see over the bay. Basically, they all remain between 10 to 15 knots or less. So very benign. Similar to the coastal waters, you can see that all of these maximum wind gusts 10 to 15 knots, maybe a few scattered gusts of 15 to 20 later today and tonight, but otherwise very, very benign. Kind of been over that, and we can just do a quick look at the seas. And with those lower wind gusts, we are expecting to see lower seas, so anywhere between 1 to 2 feet, with the highest being at the mouth of the bay, being around 2 feet. And same goes for the coastal waters forecast. Not really expecting anything higher than 3 feet, except for maybe briefly overnight in the far offshore waters. All right, and that is all I have for you today. So please do let me know if you have any questions, and everyone have a great day.